Well, hello, Dr. Seth Kennard. We're so happy you're here.
What's up, Dr. Amanda? How
Oh
are
my
things?
gosh, I wouldn't go that far. I'm great. I'm actually super thrilled you are here today to talk about helping kids make friends at school because it is something I worry about for my kids all the time.
Yeah. It's as a parent, I get it for sure. Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about Mountain View and a little bit about your school so that we know where you're coming from with all the information you're going to share with us?
Yeah. So, like, I'm principal of Mountain View Elementary, which is the largest elementary school really in the region. We have about 800 students, and we go preschool through fifth grade. So, a lot of those formative years are going to happen 6 years in the same place. But our school's highly transient. So, we have kids coming and going throughout the school year. So, on any given year, about 20% of our population may turn over. So, we may start with 800 kids and end with 800 kids, but a big chunk of them are new by the end of the year. So there's always opportunities for new students to come and meet new friends and kids to meet new kids. And it kind of keeps it exciting.
And also a lot of, now I'm doing a whole therapy thing where I'm like a lot of opportunities to say goodbye because I think saying goodbye to friends is actually such an important skill for life. And I know we're not talking about that, but I'm like, you're also hosting a lot of goodbyes, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting. Some families know they're going to move pretty far out and
Mm-hmm.
we get good warning and we prepare for it. And there's something more formalized like a goodbye. And sometimes students will tell us that Friday afternoon, I won't be back on Monday. We moved. Um,
Wow.
and that's probably more frequently. And a lot of the students kind of just get used to that movement for whatever reason. Oftentimes it's parents who are following affordable housing. We've had some military families, but generally it has to do with the housing market in the area.
Wow. Well, so you really are watching kids kind of make new friends, say goodbye to new friends, hold friends, which I always talk about is one of the hardest part. Like sometimes it's easy to make friends, it's really hard to keep friends.
Yeah.
But let's talk about just how do you make and keep friends and how do you help your kid make and keep friends?
So, I mean, if you're talking about like how do I personally make and keep friends,
No.
are you talking about our students?
I
Because
mean,
as you know, I'm very selective in the friends I choose.
you are, but when you find them, you're like all in, which I
That's true.
appreciate
That's
very,
true.
very, very much.
No, I think it's really like one of the great things about kids is that they're much more open to meeting new people and not going to focus and drill down on one characteristic or one interaction and judge that person for life. As adults, we do that pretty frequently.
Yeah.
We immediately say, I don't like that one thing, therefore I'm not going to engage this person any longer. Kids aren't really like that. Part of it is we kind of create these opportunities at school, whether it be students are in the same homeroom or the same class for the year. So they're having lunch with the same group of people.
Mm-hmm.
They're transitioning between classes. They could be on the same bus together, the same sports teams, all those different things. And it creates these kind of little ecosystems where students are interacting multiple times. And eventually they find things they have in common with each other. So that happens pretty quick. I can tell you that we have a student join us mid-year. We always make sure they have someone to kind of get them to that first day, places to sit at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of the day, they usually have connected with someone. And by the end of the week, they've connected with multiple people and those things go on. Every summer we scramble classes up a little bit for the
Yep.
next year. And every summer we have parents reach out and say, my child's out in the class with their best friend, or
Yep.
there's no one
That
in that
wasn't me.
class.
I never did that. I would
I,
never do
I
something
feel
like
like we
that.
may have had one of these conversations where it's like, there's no one in the class that my kids are gonna be friends with. They're going to hate school this year. And sometimes we make a mistake, but in general, the teacher the year before has kind of done some matchmaking and thinks that an opportunity is there for students to make friends. It always happens, right? So I always tell parents, just give it 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, they have a whole new group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kept the old ones, but now
Mm-hmm.
they have this new group. So kids show us how to do it.
So when you see it going well for kids, what does it actually look like? Like, what are they doing at school? Because again, we're not at school. You are at school actually
Yeah.
seeing what they're doing. What are they doing when they're making friends?
I mean, it's hard to say one thing because I can say it's a varied group of activities. The most obvious one that parents think about is like lunch and recess, right? The
Mm-hmm.
unstructured time. So you'll see kids doing imaginative play together outside, organized play with a sport, dancing. We have kids that go into full imaginative play and they've created these Dungeons and Dragons games on the playground. We have kids do very traditional soccer and bracelet making.
Mm-hmm.
They sit together and they talk. What I like the most is when we have two students who find each other that might be a little more unique, a little more outliers,
Yeah.
and they find the other outlier. And next thing you know, they find each other at recess and they're playing these games that only they truly understand and they're in their own little world. And it's one of those things like as an adult, I wish I had that
Yeah.
because it just goes. The next thing you know, that time is gone and they come inside and they start the day again. But throughout the day, it's just kids having little interactions, not just with one person, but with many people. The way I think you know that something's been born at school is when they want to spend time outside of school with one
Hmm.
another. So I have 3 kids and my youngest is in 5th grade and she absolutely came home the first week of school this year and wanted some people to come over and play. And there were names I'd not heard the year before. So we did facilitate that as a parent. We weren't try to get our kids to match up with other kids and try to match
Hmm.
make that. It just kind of happened on its own. We kind of follow that to encourage students to like, our own kids to follow what they're interested in, which may change every year and it may change based on who they meet.
So I'm sure there are parents listening that are like, okay, I hear this. I know what it's supposed to look like. But what does it look like when it's not going well? Because I will tell you, I actually think my kids are they're doing okay socially, right? Yet have I called you and said, Seth, I'm so worried about one of my kids socially because of course we worry about it and he's coming home sort of like presenting like it's not going okay. So when it's actually not going okay, what are you seeing?
So first I will say is that a majority of the time when a child comes home and says they have no friends at school or they hate school, I invite parents to come in and spy with me
Oh,
because you'll
that's
see
cool.
that that's not normally the case. Like teachers are on recess; they're not just supervising for safety and missing students and all that. They're also looking to make sure that everyone has a good time, that kids aren't alone. And very rarely do we students alone at recess unless they want to be alone. Some students need that sensory break and
Hmm.
want to read a book and do whatever, and that's what they want to do, and they enjoy doing that. But in general, kids who want to play find someone they want to play with. So when you say is it not when it's not going well, sometimes we see students who they may have a friend that they really connect with in class, but their activities and their interests outside of the classroom
Oh,
don't
that's
match.
super interesting.
So I've worked with a family recently where the student was really interested in this one activity, what dancing, but all his buddies just want to play soccer, which he didn't want to do. And
Hmm.
they were great friends inside of school. They did things outside of school, but at recess, it wasn't him being excluded. It was like, we really want to play soccer.
Hmm.
And he really wanted to do something else. And you can interpret that one of two ways. You can interpret it that their friendship's healthy enough that they don't have to be together all the time,
Hmm.
or that one or the other is being excluded, right? So I think that contextualize what kids want versus who they want to spend time with, they may not match. Just like adults, there are things that I'm sure I like to do or you like to do that don't match, and we just don't do that together.
Hmm.
And I think that's healthy. I think sometimes when students come home and say, there's a lot of recess today because so and so wouldn't play with me, there's a little bit more to it. And that thing that's more to it could be just maybe they want to play a different game, and that's okay. But I tell you, students are not wandering around at recess looking for someone to play with. It doesn't happen.
Do you facilitate those conversations where one student might say to another student, like, hey, I really like you. I just want to play soccer and you want to dance? Do you help them have that conversation or do you sort of leave that to the parents at home?
No, I think it's something that we do as a school staff. It's generally our school counselor, the teacher will facilitate that. But usually what happens is I'll hear about it from a concerned parent or a concerned teacher that this was reported. And we look into it to make sure there isn't bullying or exclusion. And, majority of the time it's just like, no, we love you, Seth. We just don't want to dance with you right now. And
Hmm.
we want to go play soccer. And that's pretty simple explanation. And then we're like, so do you want to play soccer? What's more important? Or do you want to hang out with your friends? Or is there something else you could do? And kind of help facilitate that. I think some students may have such an attachment to other kids that they assume everything's the exact same, and it's
Hmm.
not. It's kind of a life lesson too. Like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
okay not to have everything in one person or group of people.
Well, I also think it's really healthy to teach them how to talk to their friends, right? Like we all have conflict with our friends. And so to actually just say it directly is so useful. And just starting that at a really young age.
Yeah. I mean, I think kids are so much better at it than adults. In my experience, is like
I agree with you.
they'll be very, very forthcoming about their feelings, and that I don't like that. That didn't make me feel good. Like, would you ever say that as an adult? Like when you were
No,
close, which is probably the safest people to say it to would be your close friends, but we don't do it.
you're
It's
totally
fascinating.
right because I worry about what my friends are thinking and kids don't really worry about it. And they don't
Yeah.
take it on. They're not taking it on. They're like, "Oh, she doesn't like it. Okay, I'm going to go dance over here then."
Yeah, exactly. It's very like there's something that gets lost around those middle school years where all of a sudden it's like it's got to be some primal I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe situation,
Yes.
but it's like all of a sudden you see this shift and those feelings get held inside and then they usually explode at some point at dinner or, or bedtime when we find out what's going on at home as a parent. But yeah, elementary is a little different. I mean, kids are great communicators when it comes to most of these things.
That's cool.
Sometimes their perspective isn't always the same, like the situation we just talked about. And then once we kind of help facilitate that and practice it, they go off and they do it. And there's no judgment either way, which is really how it should be.
So what I find so interesting about what you're saying, Seth, is that now, do I think we're lucky that our kids go to Mountain View and have you as a principal? Yes. So I want to know right now that Seth is a great principal and probably is leading a healthy recess at his school. But I'm also really hearing that there aren't a lot of kids sort of wandering around aimlessly at recess unless they want to be. But the number of parents that I see in my therapy practice that are saying, my kid says they're alone at recess is huge. So are you really serious? There aren't a lot of kids wandering around at recess? Is that true?
And yes, it's true. I mean, I will tell you that. Has it ever happened? Sure. When it happens, do teachers notice immediately? And it's something that we address. But in all honesty, it's very rare. Now, I will say, as we see it, purposeful exclusion does happen.
Yeah.
Typically closer to fifth grade, typically closer to fifth grade girls. That's just been my experience over the years. And that is handled much differently, right? And that we have seen some of that. But in general, kids find someone to play with that they're interested in playing with. And the groups kind of change every single day. And there's first tier friends you want to hang out with after school all the time. And there's kids that are just your friends at school that you play with at recess. So yeah, I don't think it's one of these. I would say it absolutely happens. And if you think your child, if that is happening, you should definitely contact their teacher and say, can you take a peek at recess? Does so-and-so have someone to play with? The counselor can look at that. If they need help making a friend, they're quieter, we can always help with that too. But it does happen pretty naturally in the vast majority of our student cases.
So why are kids coming home and telling their parents they have no one to play with at recess?
Why do kids do anything to pull your strings at home? I mean, they're the best manipulators in the world. It's great. Like if I don't want to go to school because my stomach hurts, there's all these things that kind of pop up, right? Think about like what I will say is my experience with my own kids and with kids at school is they hold it together all day at school, right? And school is long. If you think of the bus ride, you're talking like
it is a long day,
over 7 hours, right? They're exhausted. They get home, they're tired. They want to sleep in the next day. They may hold on to one little incident and that defines their entire day as well. I've seen that happen quite a few times where something happens on the bus or something happens at the end of recess where didn't cheer for them and they missed a kick or someone said something and their whole day is awful. No one wants to play with me. Everyone's being, it would really drill down to us that one little moment in time. And it's teaching kids to have that resilience and realize, let's put that in perspective together. What really happened. It just takes time. And as a parent, sometimes it's really hard to drill down because everyone's busy. And sometimes we do that for the school at the school side.
So what do you think? Because I think you're right. I think many times it's just like one instance, right? And they're taking that home and they think they're going to get some attention or they're really exhausted and they really feel that's true. The one instance has clouded their whole experience of the day. So how do you help parents drill down on it? And how do you help them build the resilience to keep on making friends, to continuously put themselves out there, even when they feel rejected sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think part of it is it doesn't all happen just in school. Like school's a great place to practice, right? But
that makes sense.
For a lot of our students is like there's different activities outside of school, opportunities in the neighborhood. It doesn't have to be a sports team or theater or something, but a lot of students do those things as well, where they're using those same muscles they're building at school. So like you said before, like if students can learn how to communicate with one another in school, they can apply that other places of life and it can only help. So having conversations with parents, asking questions, not only a parent will call me or call our counselor or the teacher and say, you know, Amanda came home. She said it was another terrible day at school. She doesn't want to go because she has no friends. So-and-so's making fun of her. And you know, that's the picture that mom or dad went to bed with the night before. I'm sure they had a restless night's sleep and they held it overnight.
Yes, you're talking about me.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about probably myself. Sometimes it's awful. And as a parent, you want to protect your kids and get them ready for life. But you remember that feeling when you had it as just self in your kid. And it's like, there's a reason we remember that stuff. So it's awful. And usually what happens is I sit down with the student or the counselor sits down with the student or the teacher and we drill down, we try to find out what happened. We drill down, try to find out what happened. And usually get the benefit of it being the next day and the kids slept. So by the time we talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, I mean, this happened. But that's not what happened, you know, the night before. That's not what happened. The parent was thinking about it. And the facts kind of change over time a little bit. And really it's like, okay, that's what happened. We figured that out. So it sounds like you missed the ball in soccer and someone said something not kind to you, or you weren't picked for the team first because you missed the ball and it made you feel like you weren't welcome, right? What are we gonna do next time? And immediately shift into that next time
Mm-hmm.
role.
Mm-hmm.
If it looks like there's like a power dynamic or like a group against one or exclusion on purpose, that's when we step in as a school and we try to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate safe play. We might talk to other kids involved and make sure there's more supervision. But I'd say like 9 times out of 10, it's more about, that seems like a frustrating experience that got you really upset. That might happen again. Is it worth it? Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love soccer. Okay, so let's think about what we're going to do next time that happens, right? As for teaching the parents, usually we just tell them that's the conversation we just had. And the parents are like, oh, okay. You know,
And then you're also teaching parents how to do it, right? Like you're also teaching parents how to kind of say like, okay, you were sad and what are you going to do next time? Because I always wonder as a parent, when my kids feel sad, there's a lot of gentle parenting out there and there are a lot of great things about gentle parenting. And one of the things is kind of like my kid feels sad. I want to dive so deep into that. And then there isn't that sort of how do you move on from the sadness? And
yeah.
there is such a nice piece of like, okay, it makes sense you were feeling sad. And how do you want to handle that next time? And how do you move on from that feeling that they're having? Because that's just as important as understanding the feeling.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess it's how long do you want to wait around in the sadness before moving on? And yeah.
Yeah.
I think like, I don't know, as a parent, I probably better my emotional bank sometimes runs out at school. So I probably do a better
Yes.
job at this as a principal than I do as a dad sometimes,
Yes.
which is awful. But I'll say is like,
Also normal, by the way.
yeah, I'm sure it's normal, but like there are times in which my own kid will come home and they'll say, one of my three will say something happened. And in the back of my head, I know what I just told you, that it's their context, they're exhausted. It's what happened. It's probably one incident, it's paying a day with, but you still get that what is going on at that school mode for a second.
Yeah.
And then you think about the student did it, and we do all these things in our heads, and then a day later, 2 days later, we find out what happened, and they're playing together again. Well, why are you playing with Amanda? Oh, we're friends. But what about she made you upset? Oh, no, it was nothing, right? Like that happens, that cycle, and we forget it. It just happens again next time. So I think that we have to do a better job as parents. Like when I say we, I mean me, of just like pausing and putting in perspective of what's going on, and then having a reaction in front of our kids that's problem solving instead of really focusing on what the other student did, what the other kid did, how dare they do that. I'm going to call the school, because then it becomes someone was right and someone was wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in kid language, bad or good.
Yeah.
And that gets a little bit dangerous because there might be the best friend in the world out there who was having a bad day and wanted to be left alone and want to play with you. Or there might be someone who's really competitive in soccer, but they're also a really fun best friend. And you didn't realize that. And you got in a situation in which they expect you differently. And you don't want to have your family think that kid's bad, or you think that kid's bad or good, and those things. It's more about just like, these are going to happen. What are we going to do when they happen and to address them and move on? It's just also kids are a lot easier to talk to at school. They are just, they're not going to have the emotional meltdowns. They save that for their parents, which is one of the greatest parts of my job.
But
yeah, I'm like, I can have a rational conversation with the student about what happened and really problem solve. My daughter comes home at 4 or 5 o'clock. She is not going to sit down and have a rational conversation with me about it. She's exhausted.
Yes.
It's the worst day ever.
I mean, what I think is so interesting about what you said too is cancel culture in general is such a problem, right? It's kind of like someone makes a mistake, they're out. And I think we see it like in our political climate, and we see it in celebrities. Celebrities are like terrified to do things because if they do the wrong thing, then they're out forever. And so I think part of what you're also teaching people is you can love people through their mistakes, right? And we as parents in this climate have to remind ourselves of that, because I think the climate makes us want to kind of like blame and be like, well, find someone else to play with. But ultimately, it is sort of, we can't just say goodbye to everyone in our lives. We're not going to be happy if we're saying goodbye to everyone in our lives. And so if we're really talking about making and keeping friends, it's how do we love people and be resilient so that we can live life alongside them. I'm so cheesy, it's ridiculous.
No, but I think that's the point, because we're raising, these are little humans, right? We're raising future big humans. So I think like it goes back to like, how do we as parents model when kids come home and they say, so-and-so excluded me, or so-and-so is mean to me, or, I don't worry about the school. I have no friends at recess. And it's like, how do we model that? Maybe part of that's true. Everything's built on the context of the kid thought, their perspective in that moment, right? Which can change the next day. And how do you model not being reactionary and making assumptions? How do you how do you take a moment and say, let's talk about that after dinner, or I want to hear more about that. You ready to talk, and get that information out? And then like obviously engage the school. We want to help. We don't want you feeling unsafe sending your child to us. We want students to be excited to come to school every
Mhm.
day. But also like we have to model our reactions to that information. So we're not rushing to judgment. Therefore, our kids might see us do that, and then they'll do the same thing. It's hard though. I mean, I still get that little bit of like that protective dad stuff comes out sometimes in my house, even though I have probably more experience with this, what happens in a school than a lot of people. And it's just like, yes, stop and take a beat.
Well, it's your evolutionary prerogative, right?
Right.
Of course, like you're going to actually have that reaction because that's what has kept us alive for so many years. And so you're going to get red. And the question is like, how do you bring yourself down to actually interact with, because I think there is nothing scarier than feeling like your child is getting kicked out of the tribe,
Yeah.
because the tribe is actually what keeps us the most safe. And so the fear of your child getting kicked out of the tribe is truly, I can't manage it. I'm like, I am not being chased by a tiger. I am not a hunter and gatherer. Like, we're
Yeah.
okay.
Well, think about it. As an adult, if you find out some of your friends are doing something without you, like to this day, you feel
Yeah.
awful. Even
Yeah.
if you don't even want to do that thing, you're like, oh, I wasn't invited. Like, of course that's hard. And then when our kids mention it, it triggers that in us. It's terrible. I get it.
It is. And so we have to sort of be aware of that that's our process, right?
Yeah.
As adults, be aware that that's what we're going to do, and then figure out how to come down and sort of say to our kids, okay, tell me more about that, right? Tell me more about what did happen at recess. Tell me more about what that kid said to you. Tell me any positive interactions. I've done that a lot with my kids, sort of,
Yeah.
tell me who was kind to you, like name 5 kind things that people did to you today. Cause it's actually really easy if you just say, like, this person said hi to me. This person, like, let me borrow a pencil. Like, when you really drill down on the kind things, kids will feel better.
Yeah. What's that? Like you notice it's like 7-1 of positives to negative for you to pick up on that. Like there's some stat I
Oh,
remember reading where it's like, it's all about the positive psychology thing. But the idea is like, you should to give 7 compliments to 1 critique,
yes.
because the people as they absorb it treat those about the same. So it's like a 7-1. So if you have 7 positive interactions and 1 not so good one, yeah, you'll be okay. Right.
But
But
So that's an easy intervention for parents, right? If your kid is
yeah.
coming home and saying, like, I don't have any friends or people don't want to play with me, start having them list, at every transition during the day, something that someone did nice for them that day. Cause that's just going to start building that in. If you build a routine around it, then that it's going to be much easier to get to 7.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I've noticed to get past that hump at the end of the day. And of course, like I said, it's the worst time of day to be having these discussions. Your kids are
Yes.
hungry, they're tired. There's probably a million things they have to do, like eat, take a bath, get ready for bed. Never enough time to do it. And like, you're like, let's talk about your feelings. And no one wants to do that. So maybe you do. You probably
I
do.
do. Come
Yeah.
on.
Okay. Besides you. And I think it's like what I found with my own kids and what I've told parents at school is like, let's help make a plan. So oftentimes if I get an email from a parent and it's like they're red and they're like, this awful thing happened, my student's really upset, what do I do? Those are emails I respond to immediately. I say, I'm so sorry that happened. I got it. I will be meeting with a child tomorrow at night. I just gave them a plan. So when
Hmm.
they go to bed that night, they know, okay, Mr. Kennard is going to talk to you in the morning. And then
Dr.
like,
Kennard. Dr. Kennard.
let's only special situations. You talk to you in the morning, and you've just given the plan. You've also given a little bit of that ownership of their feelings away, which is what kids need sometimes to go to sleep. I feel like, okay, so tomorrow this is going to happen. So it doesn't have to involve school, but it can be, let's make a plan for recess tomorrow. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to stick to it because their friend they want to play the day before wants to play with them
Hmm.
again. But if it doesn't work out, they have a backup plan and they'll know what to do. And then I think it makes it a little bit easier to get through that process at night. It gives us time to figure out what's going on. It's like you said, if you're like waiting in the sadness or the trauma,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
really hard to like get your brain unstuck from that and like try to get ready for bed. Like it's hard.
So one thing I say, because you're right, when we're parenting and it's the hardest part of the day, it's really hard to plug into what our kids are saying to us,
Yeah.
right? And so one thing I say, Jury, if I'm making dinner, I might say, that sounds really important. I can't wait to talk to you about that when I'm done making dinner. That sounds so important. Now, is it important? Who knows? But if I say that sounds important
Yeah.
to my child, they're better able to sort of hold on to it till we can talk about it. And I also wonder if when you're making a plan, just you have to sort of show the kid that you hear what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Show the kid that you hear, like, I hear that you were really upset about what happened at recess, and let's figure out what to do tomorrow. So
Yeah.
you can't do the let's figure out what to do tomorrow until you say, I hear what you said about this. And it could be so simple and so easy, but I think they both have to go in tandem.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's more about your information gathering and making sure that they get it out, right? Like you may
Yeah.
very quickly discover what truly happened, but it's not time to be corrective or put in your own perspective. It's to get their perspective out because they usually are expressing somehow through the behavior. They want to talk about it. They want you to know what they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like as you get into middle school, they just want you to like just feel the repercussions of their feelings. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want you
Mm-hmm.
involved in them. But yeah, like for the elementary kids, like they're upset and they want you to know it. Whether you need to process the whole thing right then or just make a pause point and get it later, it's kind of up to the situation you're in, I guess.
So I think the most important thing you've actually said, sorry, Seth, the most important thing is that very few kids are
This
at
is
recess without friends.
Yeah, I can't talk about your situation, but if you'd like to, I'd love to
I'm okay with
dial in there.
that. Oh, go ahead. Because
No, just I can say like one of your kids, you were
I'll tell you, it was
concerned.
Robbie.
Okay.
Robbie came home saying that he didn't have friends, which to me, as a parent and as a social person, it's really important that for me, and maybe this is more about me than him, but that he has friends
Sure.
because that's important to our family and that's important because I want him to be a kind human being.
Right.
And one more thing, there's like a male mental health crisis out there. So then I get really spun up about males and friends. So you're dealing with my anxiety, Seth. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that you were concerned and you did the right thing, which is like you weren't saying he has no friends at school. How are we going to fix this? You said, does he have friends? Right.
Yes.
But that is a great question to ask because when we look at a student, like when they do report card conferences and stuff, right? We talk about math and reading and behavior and all those things. But one of the points we talk about are their social skills. And we're not talking about please and thank yous. We're talking about, do they have friends? Do they make friends? Can they
Mm-hmm.
share? Right. And teachers know very, very quickly, just like we know very quickly, students who are able to interact with one another and have a good core group. Does your kid have a buddy? Right. Everyone should have a buddy by like third or fourth grade. Like we see this happen. And very rarely do we find a student who's not. And like our school has tons of turnover. So there's always
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to make new friends and things. But in your situation, I went and spied on him like recess, spied like I was happy as hell. He's doing
It's
great.
so
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah. But then the question is, why is he reporting that? Is it he has no one to sit next to him on the bus? Is it he's tired and grumpy? Is it there's a kid he wants to play with that he can't? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I can tell you like throughout the day, he's engaging with multiple kids in a very appropriate, friendly way. He has people to play with at recess. Those are things that indicate that socially he's doing well. So yeah, it's the perspective is a huge thing. What are they looking for they're not getting?
I think it's really interesting, and I'm going to be even more vulnerable, which is like I worry about one of my kids socially in general because in the neighborhood or at home, he's a little more up and down. Let's just say
Okay.
that a little
Okay.
more up and down. And then I did a conference today, and he is very well liked. They were literally like, he is like a pillar of the classroom and has so many friends and uses kind of his social power for good, which I thought was like a very kind thing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been in my head all night about how he has like friend issues. It's just fascinating. I think the reason I'm saying all of this is other parents are having this experience and the reality is very different than what our anxiety can tell us.
Yeah, I think by and large, that's exactly it. And the question is like, did he tell you he had no friends, or did you just like, in your perspective, feel like he should have more from
Well,
what he's
I'm a
doing?
psychologist. So again, I'm on this male mental health, reading all
Right.
that and how men need friends.
Yeah.
Boys
Yeah.
have friends though, usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I would say that like there are definitely situations in which students need support making friends, right? We have students that we have to work on that's actually goals as part of their special education
Mm-hmm.
plan. Sometimes students in the autism spectrum, we really have to facilitate those friendships and nurture them. But in general, most students do it pretty naturally, just like everything else. I've seen it be harder sometimes a really small school where you might
Yes.
have, the whole class of students for the whole year could be, 12 kids, and then you're with those same 12 kids for 6 years.
Yes.
That I think could be harder, especially if you have outlying interests, right? I can see that being a little more difficult. And then they get to middle school and they're finally free. They have a bigger pool to swim in. But in general, students are pretty good at finding people who have interests or
That's
finding
so
people
beautiful.
for the day. I mean, honestly, like some kids' best friends might not be at school, but they have friends and they have people to sit with at lunch. If we don't have behaviors are typically the middle school stuff we see, maybe fifth grade. Sometimes we have to work our way through that. But in general, kids just want to have a good time.
So this is a crazy question, but do you have a percentage of how many parents call you and kind of say, I'm worried my kid doesn't have friends?
Like over the course of a year, I don't know. A lot of those would go to our counselor, not to me. I'll say that.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
we have great counselors,
Or
but
teachers,
our
right?
teachers, absolutely. I would say, I mean, 10 to 15% would not be overshooting at all. At least 10 to 15% will check in at some point about who are my kids' friends. They have someone to play with, yada, yada, yada. And I think it's a lot of it, kids come home and say, I don't like school.
See, that's
I don't have any
crazy.
friends. And generally it's like, that's shocking to us because here's what we see during the school day. One of our favorite things to do is, why don't you come and have lunch with your child? Come to the
Hmm.
cafeteria. Like, your parents are allowed to do that. And all of a sudden, you come in and your kids could be like, oh, here's my friend so-and-so, my friend so-and-so. And you'll be like, what the hell? You just told me you had no friends, right? Like that's a really easy way to
Hmm.
engage and get to know them. And then actually, I love that strategy because you also get to get some names and you can connect with those families and say, hey, do you want to come over for a play date? And that kind
Hmm.
of thing. So there are opportunities there that you can kind of like get little glimpses into their life at school that might show you what you're being reported at 4:30 during like the witching hour is not exactly accurate.
So then when would you say to call a therapist, right? And I don't know if schools can really say that. I guess you're talking globally. So yeah, when would you say to call a therapist?
So I would say schools don't offer therapy, right? So I
Correct.
think if there's something that's being done ongoing over a period of time, or if it's a level of extremity, if it's extreme enough where it's like kind of we've not seen that before or we don't have a lot of experience, then we would tell you. Um,
Hmm.
in general, like we have social skills groups our counselors run. We have friendship groups. We have students who start clubs, like unofficial clubs, and
Hmm.
to try to like get people involved. Like there's opportunities there and we kind of create some of that. I've had like parents say at the end of the year, like, hey, Seth's been in Amanda's class the last few years. I want to try to expand this friend group. And we'll be like, oh, that's really good feedback.
Hmm.
We know that they're going to still play together at recess. So we'll just give them different classes. Like there's little tweaks we can do, those kind of things. But if this is something that's permeating school and then outside of school and then like those social
Yeah.
situations at the pool or the mall or wherever, like, and your kid is like hiding behind your leg and they're in second grade, which is, things are developmentally out there enough where you're like, the strategies we're using at school aren't working. They're not picking up opportunities, not interested in playing with someone else. And it's probably a good time to talk to someone.
Hmm. So really it's sort of call the school first. The school is going to do some interventions, right? Like maybe a social skills group or a lunch group, or pair you with someone else who likes to dance at recess and just introduce you. And maybe a teacher would even dance with them. Who knows?
Yeah.
But and then if that isn't working, it could then be a conversation. You wouldn't have the conversation necessarily, but on my end as a therapist, that is something that we can then help get involved with and work with the school or with the kid if they need to learn some other skills on how to make a friend.
Yeah. I think just the reality, like we've been talking about, might not be the same. So, like,
Hmm.
again, do your homework, do some investigating to see, is this real? Is your child truly miserable all day at school with no one to
Hmm.
talk to? And like I said, you can talk to the teacher, talk to the counselor, talk to the principal, come and have lunch, ask those positive questions, drill down and see what's really happening. And if you're still concerned and the data from the school staff is like, yeah, this is a concern, yeah, absolutely, you can reach out for more support. I just wouldn't want to see a overreaction immediately if your child comes home and says, I have no friends, I hate school, I don't want to go back. When we really drill down, that had to do with a bad kick in soccer, and
Hmm.
that's more of like how do we have resiliency to get over those things? What's your plan for tomorrow? Maybe you want to take a break from that if you have such an upset reaction to that. Is there something else you can do?
Hmm.
And then make a plan for that going forward that probably doesn't require, not that I don't want to give you business, but I think that's
No, I
most
don't want,
parents
I
have the
think,
capacity to do at home.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's exactly right. Like, most kids, it's how do we teach the resilience? I
Yeah.
love that, right? And even if we did get this client, this in our office, let's just say that, really we would just be talking to the adults about all the stuff we just talked about. Like,
Right.
how do you build some resilience for your kid to continue unless there's
Yeah.
something else going on?
Don't you think, I mean, those skills, and there's a pivot, right? So like developmentally from elementary to middle to high,
For
there's
sure.
definitely a pivot.
For
And the
sure.
idea is if we can get our kids talking to us in elementary school or talking to a trusted adult at school, like the
Hmm.
counselor or to someone, as those situations we know are going to come in middle
Hmm.
school where the exclusionary behavior happens, the risk behavior starts up, and high school the risk behavior starts up. They need to have someone safe to talk to that's not going to judge them, that's not going to overreact every time they share about their day. And it's gonna be more about like, who is that trusted adult? So start that elementary, like just have
Yes.
your kid talk to you and listen. And like you said, like really listen, and don't just fly off and have a judgment on what they did wrong or they did right, or a good kid or a
Hmm.
bad kid. There's everything's circumstantial.
Hmm. I mean, I think that's the line too, is like, it is important. It might not actually feel important that you missed a kick and someone said something,
Sure.
in second grade. But what's important is the relationship that you're building with a safe adult so that when it is actually really hard stuff, there's someone there for it.
Yeah. I mean, school's practice for life, right? We're just getting ready. So
Yeah, I love it. I
yeah.
love it. Okay, Seth, you were really helpful for me as a clinician, also for my own anxiety. I appreciate that. But if people want to get in touch with you for whatever reason, I mean, you could move into the Mountain View School District and have Seth as your principal, which would be
Yeah,
amazing.
just buy a new house. Come
Great.
on over.
Great. Come on over. It'll be great. But yeah, I don't know. This was super helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, friend.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And we made friends, and here we are. Look, we're
We
all
did.
making
Should you
friends.
want to talk about how we made friends? That might be a good little story to end
Yeah, and
on.
be great when I don't even know what I was doing, but no one listening would be shocked by the fact that I was just randomly traipsing through Seth's backyard,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, I live on like a cliff. It was not exactly like easy. And I was like trying to clear out, and this woman just comes up from behind me and says, "Can I walk through your yard?" And I said, "Well, you already are. Come on in."
And it worked.
It
Listen,
worked. It worked.
sometimes you just have to be a little vulnerable and walk
That's
through a
it.
cliff. It's
That's
fine.
it. And I did take that one interaction and paint you with a brush and judge you as someone I didn't want to be friends with,
Well,
did
you were
I?
like, she takes a lot of risks. Like, she's willing to climb a cliff to come meet her
Actually,
neighbors.
that's how I looked at it too. It has been COVID. We just moved here. I had no friends, so I was like, "That one talk to
There,
me."
there we are. There we are. Well, thank you so, so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All
Yeah,
right,
I
bye.
appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.